Hi, everyone. This is your host, Susan Rosen, and I have another guest today that I'm very excited about. Got this on the schedule quite a while ago because he's so busy. So I want to welcome Dr. Do you still use doctor?
Yeah, kind of.
Dr.
Yeah,
kind of Giles Croft,
sometimes.
Giles
Yeah.
P Croft.
I'm not, yeah. I'm more particular about the P than I am about the
Okay,
doctor, I
well, there you
think.
go. Then let me reintroduce you. This is Giles P Croft, who
Yeah.
is my guest today. And Giles is a psychology graduate and former NHS, which is National Health Service, correct?
That's it.
Okay,
Yeah.
surgeon who stepped aside from clinical practice for a decade to explore a number of career paths, including health informatics, cycling journalism, which sounds very interesting, that I will have to ask about, public speaking, and high street retail with his wife, which we can go through, and he can tell us
You
about
got
how
to
he.
see it, didn't
I
you, the other
did.
night?
I've
You
seen
got to
it.
see the shop.
I
Yeah.
did. I did, and I've seen it in watching previous
Yeah.
ones because that wasn't my first one, just the first time live. He is now back in the healing profession, tackling the root cause of chronic mental stress and its many harmful effects by helping clients reconnect to their natural inbuilt state of health and wellness. Oh, excuse me, health and happiness. Yeah, that's a brain slip. Without the need for prescriptions, coping strategies, or time-consuming self-care practices. So we should probably, I think, touch on some of those as well.
Sure we will.
Yep. He works and he lives in the UK, and he works and lives in the, and I'm probably going to mangle this, Brecon Beacons?
Yeah, the Brecon Beacons,
Okay.
National Park.
In Wales with his wife and 6-year-old daughter, which is, my goodness, keeps you on your toes, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah. Great little teacher, though.
I was just going to say,
It's,
but you can
yeah.
learn so much from them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's really been uh, absolutely integral to the all the changes that I've been through over the last few years. She really has.
Mm.
She's been part and parcel of the whole thing, really.
Well, that's good. I don't know whether we need to do, unless you have a 5-minute version of what you went through in the National Health Service and what finally kind of pushed you over the edge
Oh yeah, I
to
mean,
go to get to move in a different direction, I
yeah,
guess.
I mean, um, I was never one of those people who I never knew what I wanted to do.
Uh,
And
yeah, me
so I
neither.
was never one of those people who was like, oh, I've always wanted to be a doctor or anything. And I did well at school and everything, and I had pushy parents like everyone else, and they were like, oh, you're going to do sciences, so I did sciences, and the next thing I know, I'm at medical school, and really enjoyed it, and was absolutely, totally and utterly committed to it. I
Mm,
mean, I qualified as a surgeon, and I went from being a doctor back to being a mister again,
uh-huh.
and did a couple of years of specialist training in orthopedics, so bones and
Oh,
joints. That
okay.
was my chosen specialty. And then I just reached a crossroads, and it was the first time I think I'd slowed down enough to really question it, because this is it now. I could see the path ahead. It was
Mm,
very, very clearly laid out for me. And there was for a long time that seemed really important to me. That's how I'd been brought up.
mhm,
Those were the
mhm.
values that I'd inherited.
Yeah,
Job security was really, really important. And so
yeah.
being able to see that, yeah, I was an orthopedic surgeon. I was going to have a private practice. I was gonna have a big house and the cars and the holidays and everything. And I was like, yeah, for ages that really worked.
Yeah.
And then I got to this crossroads, and I just slowed down a bit, and I just asked the question of myself, is this really what I
Mhm,
want?
mhm.
And I had, from that little list of things I've done since that you read out, I had all these outside interests, and I could see them slowly but surely withering on the vine,
Mm.
the cycling in particular. And I also had a genuine interest at that time in the way that we managed information in the National Health Service. And I'm a bit of a geek, a bit of a, I like my gadgets and stuff. And it at that time, they were beginning to attempt sort of computerization of the NHS.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to be part of that, really. So it was a combination of factors, and then they also, the European Working Time Directive came in, and they changed all of our working hours, and training got a lot longer and stuff like that. So there were a number of reasons, but it wasn't a deliberate thing. It wasn't a deliberate thing. It's I never really even, I can't remember a time when I thought I'm going to leave. I started doing the other thing sort of on the side, and then the next thing I know, I'm accepting a job for that, and then a bit later on there was the decision as to whether I wanted to carry on doing any clinical work at all, whether this was going to be a sabbatical and I would come back, or whether it was going to be, and I just, next thing I know, it's like, oh, I appear to have left. No more complicated than that, really. So yeah, it wasn't like I woke up one day thinking, right, I'm gonna leave. It just kind of happened.
Yeah.
As these things do.
I was just going to say, isn't it interesting the way that life happens? And especially because people think that that, and I guess for some people, it is very, I don't know, this and this and this, and now I'm going to do that, and but for most of the people I know, when they've been happiest, it's when things have just kind of happened. And they've just kind of let life kind of happen around them, because then they're putting out that energy. So you really are causing it, or choosing it, I guess maybe is a better way. I just think that most of us don't know. Well, I think most of us don't know. Like I say, I think we all kind of put out that energy into the universe, and doesn't always come back with what's best for us. But
I don't know. I was just always like from very early on, I just really got my head around the idea of this. Just I want to do more of what I like and less of what I don't like. It was really simple. I was just like, if I like doing something, I'm going to do more of it, and if I don't like something, I'm going to go out of my way to do less of it. And here we are. And and I love what I do now. It's it's like it's beyond my wildest dreams. It really is.
No, I think it's great. Definitely. Okay, so now that we've established that you are in your most wonderful place of your life, why don't we talk a little bit about what you're seeing in what you're doing, right? As far as the people that you're interacting with, the people, I know you have clients, right, who you work with, and maybe we can talk a little bit about that, and mix in your Wellness Wednesdays. Wellbeing Wednesday. I was close.
You nearly got it then.
At least I got the Wednesday at the second part instead of starting with that. Oh, sorry. I need to write that down.
Well, just as we were talking before we went live, I pulled up the World Health Organization definition of health.
Yeah.
And that definition of health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity.
Oh, I so love that. I so love that.
And I got taught that at medical school. that was the big grandiose beginning of it all. It was like, so this is what health is. This is what we're here for.
Okay.
A complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and
Uh-huh.
not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. And then spent the entire rest of my standard medical training and practicing focused on disease and infirmity. I mean, without really questioning it. And it makes sense that you need practitioners who can manage disease and
Mm-hmm.
infirmity, of course, but we really didn't ever focus on a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And well-being's a big buzzword these days, isn't it? And it, I mean, I think there's a huge amount of misunderstanding around it. Certainly in sort of busy work environments, it's
Mm-hmm.
almost as if well-being has become synonymous with better working conditions. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, how are you going to look after your well-being at work? Well, I'm going to reduce my exposure to all of the stress of work, and I'm going to make sure I take time out, and I'm going to make
Uh-huh.
sure that I get enough sleep, and I eat well, and all these
All
doings
the lifestyle
to
stuff. Yep.
to kind of like to protect us from
Yeah.
all the high stress work. And I don't really see it that way, to be honest with you. I'm a bit more focused on that state of physical, mental, and social well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because I'm just I've got the actual definition here, and they have a hyphen between well and being. They don't have it as one word. It's well-being. And as far as I'm concerned, at heart, we are well-beings. We lack nothing. Health is our default state.
Mm-hmm.
Health and well-being is our default state.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when you look at it from that angle, then it's a case of really investigating, well, so if that's my default state and it's always there, and it is, then what gets in the way of it? And it's a different question, isn't it? That's
Mm-hmm.
a different question.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I, just as an aside on this, I think that one of the reasons that governments, people don't use that definition, right? Or they don't do that definition, maybe is a better way of putting it, as much as they ought to, is because I think they don't understand it. They don't understand what it means. And I think, human nature is that people need a definition. They like boxes around things. And that encompasses so much, which is why it's a wonderful definition, because it encompasses our whole human state.
Yeah.
Right. But that's like way more than people have ever experienced to grasp. We go through, especially in Western cultures, our education is
it
very
is really,
boxy.
it's a very Western thing, isn't it? Yeah. Well, it's more visible, isn't it? Disease and infirmity are far more visible
Oh my
than
God. Yeah.
than the absence of disease and infirmity. It's like,
yeah. No, it's like the old thing of, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And that's kind of how medicine is on the Western side. The Eastern looks at the whole the whole being.
Yeah.
And even that, it depends on who you go to, even over there. But at least they're coming from culturally, they're coming from a different.
Yeah, for sure.
a different point of view.
But I mean, there have been. I mean, I can't. I've got no idea who actually said it, but
Hmm.
there was a famous physician from a long time ago who said something along the lines of that. You know, the job of a physician is to do as little as possible to get out of the way of
Yeah.
the patient getting well
Right.
themselves.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's nearly there, isn't it? Because I
Hmm.
think what we do is we underestimate just how phenomenal our bodies and our minds are. You know, it's a bit more obvious with our body, isn't it? I mean, I was an orthopedic surgeon, so
Hmm.
I knew that all we had to do was put those two ends of the bone close to each other, maybe pin it so that they didn't fall apart,
Uh-huh.
and then stand back and get out of the way and
Uh-huh.
let life heal that bone. And I got
Uh-huh.
nothing to do with healing that bone whatsoever. All I do is give it the best chance by putting the two broken ends back together again.
Hmm.
So it's
Hmm.
quite obvious. It's quite obvious with the physical stuff.
Yeah.
And even with infection, it's like, you look at a wound. What do you do with a wound? Well, you keep it clean. You just remove the bits that are going to make it go bad, and you keep it clean, and it heals itself.
Uh-huh.
I don't have to think about that. I don't have to get involved with it. It's life does that. The energy
Uh-huh.
of life does that.
Hmm.
That's health for
Hmm.
me. That's health.
Yeah.
It's the capacity for healing. It's the capacity to come back into balance. And
Right.
as you know, I got a few sort of facts about our psychology that I come up with
Mm.
Wellbeing Wednesdays, and one of them is that our bodies and our minds are always striving to come back into balance. We're
Mm.
these beautiful homeostatic beings that are always coming back into balance. We're always operating about a mean. And again, it's fairly obvious with bodies. It's not so obvious with minds. And
Mhm.
and I suppose that's the staple of my work, really, is to let people see that, well, you know there's not really much point in trying to separate out body and mind, because they're one and the same thing, really. And our mind operates about a mean as well, and is always coming back into balance, and if we, again, remove the contaminants, if we don't get in the way of it, then we settle, and we come back to our health, we come back to our mental health.
Yeah. And the picture, when you were talking, the picture that I was kind of getting in my mind was that there are all these other things that come in at us.
Hmm.
And so, if I'm thinking of like the I can't think of what it's called, but where it's got the thing on the end and you hold the stick and it just kind of eventually stops.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know what it's called.
I don't know either.
Yeah. But anyways, one of those. But that was kind of like what I was thinking about, was getting back into balance, right? It just eventually you can hit it or whatever, but if you let it go, then it comes back.
Yeah.
Just into
We
the
used to have
center.
little
And
toys. We used to have little
yes,
toys here in the UK.
that
I don't know
too.
if we used to call them Weebles, and the catchphrase
Ah.
was "Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down." And
Oh,
you
okay.
can
Exactly.
push them
Yeah,
all the
that's
way
like
over
it.
to the side,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah, that's a
they
different
come back
kind
again.
of version.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking that's part of the problem, is that we're always, if it's over here and you're kind of out of balance, we're always throwing other things at it
Yeah.
instead of just letting it
Yeah.
come back
Yeah.
into balance.
Yeah. What you resist persists.
Yes.
It's a nice one, isn't it?
Yeah.
What you resist persists.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, because I think, as you say, people can understand it when it comes to actual physical things and issues. But I think when it comes to where your mindset comes in, And that can affect your physical, obviously. But I think it's, for some people, it's too obscure.
Or maybe it's too simple.
Well,
Maybe
I
it's
think
too.
that's the problem. Yeah.
I mean, I had a moment. I was like, so I woke up. Here's an example for you. I woke up one morning. And I've got no idea why. I can't remember now, but I was in a really bad mood. I was really grumpy. I really had something on my mind that was really bothering me a lot, and I could see the day stretching ahead of me, thinking, "Oh, it's going to be a miserable day," it's like that. And anyway, I got in the shower, and I'd been in the shower, 5 minutes or something, and and I suddenly noticed that I wasn't cross anymore. I wasn't miserable anymore. It's not like I was elated or anything, but I, I'd kind of, I'd flattened, and what was also obvious was that I didn't have much on my mind. That there wasn't much going on in my head. I was in the shower and I wasn't really thinking about anything. And all of a sudden, I noticed, oh, hang on a minute. I don't feel upset anymore. I don't feel bothered anymore. And before it's good that I've got the awareness of this now, but before I could do anything, I suddenly noticed my mind started up again, and it said, oh, it's a bit quiet in here. Now, what was I fretting about? What was that thing that I was fretting about?
Yeah, right.
And I found myself searching my memory banks for what it was that had been annoying me. And we do that all the time.
Yeah.
And just in that moment, I was like, whoa. That's my psychological immune system at work. That's the same as a wound healing or a bruise healing. If you want a bruise to heal, what do? Well, you don't prod it. You don't carry on prodding it. You leave it alone. And it's exactly the same with our psychology. We get these bruised thoughts, we get this bruised ego, and the thing to do is to literally leave it alone. And I think that people think that that's maybe a bit too straightforward. So I don't know about it being complex. It's like, what you mean? It's as simple as that I just don't go there. It's like, yeah, just don't go there. Don't go there. I mean, I think, personally, I think our biggest superpower as human beings is the ability to forget. Our biggest superpower is the ability to forget. I think we've been designed to forget, because we've all been through terrible stuff in our lives, and I can't remember. I can't. I could, if I wanted to, I could sit down and I could really,
you could bring it up,
plumb the depths of my memory banks to bring it all back up again, and hey presto, guess what? I'm not going to feel great doing that. But why? Like there's reality. What's real is right under our noses right now. It's like, it's the present moment. It's now. There's not that. Everything else is a creation of thought. The past is a creation of thought. The future is a creation of thought, and what's real is what's right under our noses in this present moment. And that's where we find our well-being. You ain't gonna find your well-being anywhere other than in the present moment.
No, that's true. That's very true. And it's so, for a lot of people, they don't know how to get there. Even though we're really in it all the time, and you really can't. I mean, even if you think about the past, and even if you think about the past, you're doing it in the present.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, there's a beautiful Steve Chandler quote. It was something like, it's like, when you see that your past doesn't create your present creates your past. I was like, oh, that's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're laboring under the impression that our past creates our present, but it's not. Our present creates our past. Everything is created in the present moment. There's nowhere else to create it.
Yeah. Oh no, and excuse me, and that makes perfect sense if you really
Mm,
think about it. And the same goes for the future, right?
exactly.
You can only create that in the present as well.
But that freaks people out a bit, doesn't it? Because
Yeah.
then, the kind of like then the old left brain gets revved up again and it goes, yeah, what? So are you saying I have to sit meditating for my entire life? How am I ever going to achieve anything? And the mind always goes there. And I mean, it happens with pretty much all my clients that they go through that, and and I'm like, well, do I strike you as somebody who sits on his backside all day doing nothing? No, it's again that's just that's the mind doing its thing. That's the mind telling stories. That's the mind that it is so kind of like scared of the present moment that the mind will do anything to take you out of the present moment. It will do anything at all.
Yeah.
It will
Yeah.
create any story, any diversion it possibly can to stop you from being in
Yeah.
the present moment.
Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting too, because one of the things I know that in fact, I think I even did a podcast about it a few weeks ago, has to do with what we see and what we think we're experiencing, right? And the fact that you and I can be sitting right next to each other watching a car accident or something, right? And we will come up with two totally different versions. And if there was a video camera videotaping it, we would see that neither your version nor my version is correct.
Yeah.
The only correct one is the one on the videotape, which is why most police departments these days do not rely on eyewitness accounts, because they are notoriously incorrect. It's just the way our brains work. And I was just kind of like, whoa, that was just, to say that we're all living in our own reality is so true.
Yeah. It's pretty liberating too. It takes a lot of, like to know that, at the level of principle, nobody can actually see the same thing as you. It's it takes a lot of the pressure off, really. It takes a lot of the pressure off.
Yeah, it does. It does. But I can see where a lot of people would go, oh my God, how can that be? How can that be? Right.
Well, it's I mean it's for me. I mean, I got the medical background,
Right.
and
Yeah.
I was taught all this stuff. I was
Yeah.
taught all this stuff when I did, I did like modules on neuroscience and stuff, and how the brain works. And but what's funny is that nobody's really ever pointed out the significance of that. This is what I love about this work. It's like it's all right there. It's all right there, right under our noses. It's like, we know for a fact that just the way that human perception works in terms of data going in through our senses and then being created, our version of reality being created from all that data. Well, like you say, you get 100 people and you send them off to the cinema to watch a film, and they've watched 100 different films. Even though it's exactly the same, and they're eating the same popcorn and they've got the same sound and the same temperature and they're all sat next to each other. And this is why, one person thinks it's the best film they've ever seen and the other one fell asleep halfway through. It's because their version of reality is theirs and theirs alone.
Yeah. Yes. And I'd say 99% of the population have no idea that that's what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you ask people, if you say, well, so how comes people see things differently? That I think that mostly, again, we just take it for granted and we don't really question it. And if you really push people and you said, well, so, how much of your experience is down to state of mind, then a lot of people would say, oh, it definitely plays a part. It
Yeah.
definitely plays a part.
Yeah.
And I think the difference that you and I have seen
Uh-huh.
is that it's not that it plays a part, is that it's 100% of
Right.
it.
It is the
It's
part.
like, it is the part. Yeah, it's everything. Like, thought is absolutely everything.
Yeah.
We're living in the feeling of this,
Yeah.
thought created reality that we're all walking around in.
Yes.
And yeah, that's a slightly different thing, isn't it? Like, when you see that, it's like, whoa.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because I even that sometimes I have to remind myself.
Oh yeah, we fall in and out of it all day long.
Yeah. And it's just, oh my God, now what am I supposed to be remembering here? Oh, thought and feeling. Okay, look at the feeling. Tells me what I'm thinking.
and that, it's from an evolutionary perspective, it makes total sense, because we've evolved, so we've got this incredible pattern matching left hemisphere that goes looking for edges, and it separates things out into objects, and it tells us stuff about those objects, and it's looking for danger. So when we evolved this ability as humans, it was really important. It was really important for us to totally believe it without question. So if we're looking at the long grass and we see a shape moving through that long grass, then it doesn't make sense evolutionarily, from an evolutionary perspective, for us to be debating whether or not it's a tiger. We're going to see a tiger and we're going to get the hell out of there. So it's kind of like built into the system that we're supposed to believe it. We're supposed to believe this image that's created. And we're, it's just like we're lumbered with, that was, between 70 and 100,000 years ago that step of evolution happened. And we're kind of lumbered with it now. We're lumbered with this 70,000-year-old software. We've not had a software update for a very, very long time. And our poor old left brain is still scanning the world for danger.
Yeah.
It's just scanning the world for danger. That's all it's doing. And all we need to do is to see through that, is to see that 100% of our feelings are coming from that picture that's being created inside our, well, I hesitate to say inside our heads, because who knows whether it's actually inside our heads or not, consciousness.
Yeah.
But to be able to see see through that and get some perspective on it, there's real freedom in that. There's real freedom in that. It means we don't have to be scared anymore. We don't have to take that seriously, because unless you actually live in the jungle, and you've probably evolved the ability to get on quite harmoniously with the animals in the jungle. But if you don't live in the jungle, there aren't any tigers anymore. There's a lot of news, and there's a lot of apparent workplace stress, but it's a creation of our minds.
Yeah.
It's a creation of our minds.
Yeah. And COVID and all of that.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that.
Oh, no. It's real. It'll kill you if you get it wrong.
That's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's that distinction between real and true. The experience of it is real.
Yes.
Everything that we're experiencing is real.
Yeah.
But by definition, at the level of principle, again, we're back in the cinema with all the different people. If everybody's having a different experience, which one's true? None of them. None of them are true.
Or all of them.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it gets down to what's true, right? I mean, what is true?
Exactly. Well,
because it's true for me. My experience is especially if you're talking about physical kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I also see it. There's also like the it also makes sense to me to see that that just because something is true for me doesn't mean it's true for you, which means that if I just because I see something as wonderful or horrible,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean you see it as wonderful
Yeah.
or horrible.
Yeah.
And I think that's another place where we all get really tied up in knots, is how come
Yeah.
you aren't reacting the way I'm reacting, right?
Yeah.
Why aren't
Yeah.
you seeing it the way I'm seeing it? Well, that's because I'm me and you're you, and that's
I
the
mean,
thing that we have to understand.
for me, it means that we can, we just don't have to take it so seriously.
Yeah, exactly.
I know that whatever beliefs I hold, whatever values I hold, which is another fancy way of saying beliefs, isn't it?
Yeah.
It even my preferences, that they are all that they're all transient, they're all flexible, they're all ethereal, they all they come and they go, they change. And so I don't have to hold on to them really tightly.
Right. Yes. And they're all yours.
Yeah.
Which is why you can let go of them. So, yeah, it's so simple, and yet we as humans, we're so good at complicating everything.
I think I think what's sometimes helpful is to really look to what's variable and what's constant. So our experience and all those things that I talked about, belief and preference and even personality, it really looks like all that stuff's fixed, but it's not. None of it's fixed at all. It's all thought created. And people change all the time. I'm vastly different from how I was a few years ago. And so that's all variable. So then you've got to, when you start the exploration of, well, what's constant in that case, what doesn't change, well that's when we get back to that World Health Organization definition, really, because what's constant and what doesn't change is that capacity for health, is that well-being that sits underneath all of the storm clouds of experience and what's going on in our lives and what we're thinking, and underneath all of that we can fall back into at any time is our well-being. And it's we've only got words to try and describe it, which is really difficult because we're trying to describe something that's indescribable, but we've all felt it. We've all felt it. We've all felt that. We've all had that experience of not being in our analytical mind and just being present to the wonder of life. We've all had it. And again, we just take it for granted and think that we have to work really hard to get there, and to see that it's always there, that it's our default state, and it's getting caught up in this misunderstanding of how we're experiencing the world that gets in the way of it. And whenever we see through the illusion of it all being true, everything I see is true, when we see through that illusion, well, that's when it tends to, the chitter chatter tends to die down a bit, and you don't take it so seriously, you don't identify with it, and you spend more time in your well-being, in your natural state of peace of mind and complete physical, mental, and social well-being.
Yes.
It's quite wonderful.
It is. It is. I always kind of refer to it as my inner wisdom.
Yeah.
I just fall back into my inner wisdom. Everyone's got their own kind of name for it, I think, or place,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Home, isn't it? It's home.
Yeah. 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 It. Yeah. I remember the first time I felt that was actually sitting meditation in a Buddhist Zen center here in the Bay Area. And I still, even to this day, I can feel that's like, I can drop down into that kind of, that feeling. It made such a big impact on me.
For me, it was completely the opposite. I was up on stage in front of an audience when I first properly experienced it. It was almost because the actual situation itself, looking in from the outside, would have been incredibly stressful. I'd actually started giving a talk that I'd been given for a decade or so, and I was very good at giving it, and but I'd come across this understanding of the mind, and all of a sudden I heard myself opening my mouth and saying, "Oh, I'm not going to give you the talk I was going to give you. I'm going to tell you about something else," without any preparation whatsoever, and stood there in front of an audience up on stage, waiting for the next words to come. Good grief. And so, like, looking in on that from the outside, that's worse than dying for some people. Isn't public speaking, that's like the nightmare that people have about going and doing a talk without any trousers on or something. And yet, because I'd been, we say looking in this direction, don't we? Because I'd been looking in this direction, and I'd had some insights around this connection between our thoughts and our feelings. I talk about it as I experienced my own health in that moment, and I knew that in spite of all of the racing heart and the sweaty palms and the anxious feelings and everything, that I was absolutely fine. I'd never felt so safe in my entire life. I felt carried through that talk. It was the most amazing feeling. And having been through that, life's literally, it's just never the same.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I know that whatever happens, that again, we're back to the World Health Organization definition, that state of physical, mental, and social well-being, that it's always there. It's actually who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am at my core. It's what's constant. It's an absolute dependable constant that we can all access at any time. Yeah. So yeah, it is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love this work. It's brilliant.
Yeah. It's interesting because, excuse me, for me, there were decades between sitting in the Zendo and learning about the principles, just in the last couple of years. And it kind of took me the last
bit of the jigsaw, isn't it? It's like, oh,
that's what that is. Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, and then you learn that you kind of you look at your bookcase or something, and all these books that you've been reading over the years, and you go, oh yeah, that's what they were saying. Oh yeah, that's what they were saying. And it's everywhere, isn't it? And all of the ancient wisdom. You don't have to look very far at all for all of these. This is why all these inspirational quotes have stood the test of time, and it's because they've been pointing to the truth of how life actually works, and but we're all blind to it until somebody gently
Until we're
prods
not.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sid Banks used to say, tapping people on the shoulder and waking them up. It's a really good way of putting it, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. So maybe that's a good place to wrap up, I think.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for inviting me on.
Oh, thank you for coming on. It's been a real pleasure. And excuse me, I don't know whether you want to take 2 minutes or however long and just let everybody know about your Wellbeing Wednesdays.
Sure.
And we'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, for sure. The first Wednesday of every month, I spend an evening. We have a shop. It's my wife's shop, really. It's a beautiful wool and craft shop. Mm-hmm. It's full of lovely things,
which we call yarn here in the US.
Yarn, of course, yes, yarn. And so I go down there and I take questions about this stuff, because it's one thing to hear it, and it usually stirs things up a little bit, and people have a lot of questions. It's like, so are you saying that, and what about this, and what about that? So I take questions, and the aim is also to really properly slow down, so that people can have an opportunity to experience their own well-being. I don't just sit there chucking facts at people. I want people to really slow down and have that experience themselves. So if people want to try them out first, I've got a YouTube playlist. So I've got a YouTube channel, just search for Dr. Giles P Croft. And I've got a website as well, which again is gilespcroft.com. And just search for Giles P Croft and you'll find me. Basically, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn.
You're everywhere.
Yeah. I don't know what number of podcasts this is I've appeared on, but I do rather enjoy it. It's a lot easier than having my own podcast, appearing on other people's. So thank you.
Oh,
You've been doing all the hard work, Susan.
Thank you for coming on. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah. No, it's wonderful. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate it. And I will end with my usual, which is that this is not medical advice. I am not a doctor, even though you are, but I'm not. But so if you are having any kind of medical emergency, please go and talk to your own doctor. And if you're having an emergency, please go to the emergency room. So other than that, I think we're done. We are done for this podcast, and I will say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
See you all.